What did tonight do in terms of regaining respect?
Well, I think it gave us an opportunity to have a 2-game season. You guys gave us a lot of really positive rat poison. The rat poison that you usually give us is usually fatal. But the rat poison that you put out there this week was yummy.
Kirby, after a loss like this, what's the first thing you tell your team?
I love them, and I appreciate them. And, the outside noise begins now. We've heard it before, but these guys are so solid. We got such great leaders in there. And I didn't have to say a lot in there because the leaders spoke up and talked about what they wanted and how they wanted the next couple weeks to go. And I think when you've got that, you've built the right kind of kids.
Oh, welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Mike Brett. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I was scheduled to be joined by my cousin Shane, but cousin Shane couldn't make it. Shane was supposed to be on the show, but don't give him too hard of a time. He had a little family situation pop up at the last minute. So, hey, hopefully we'll get him back on the next episode to break down some of these bowl matchups, but couldn't go without a show. So much going on in the SEC. If you missed it already, Shane and I already did a SEC championship game emergency podcast. Going to do a little bit deeper of a dive after having watched the game twice now. We've got all these bowl games finalized for all 13 SEC teams and the latest coaching rumors and speculation. And now that we got the head coaches finalized, now we got all kinds of assistant coaches and head coaching moves across the country that could potentially have dominoes in the SEC. So a lot to get to, but let's start with the action there in Atlanta over the weekend. Again, Alabama, of course, you know by now, whipped up on them Georgia Bulldogs 41-24, and both these teams headed to the college football playoff. We get more into those matchups here in a moment, but Alabama, as crazy as it is to say, Nick Saban, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, they shocked the world. I didn't see hardly anybody picking Alabama to win this game but a handful of analysts. I think Lee Corso was one of them. And usually when Lee's picking a team, that means they're going to lose. Maybe we should have seen something when both cousin Shane and I both picked them Georgia Bulldogs to win. We should have known the writing was on the wall. Alabama was going to win. But just a really impressive performance, and even more impressive when you consider the fact that Georgia jumped out to a 10-0 lead. It looked like they were going to handle their business. Cousin Shane hit me up with so many texts mocking me for saying I thought Alabama would start strong in this thing. But once down 10-0, one of the keys for the game, there was 5 key moments in this game, in my opinion, and one came after going down 10-0. Alabama, Bryce Young hit Jamison Williams on a 64-yard touchdown pass, and that really seemed to spark the Crimson Tide. If not for that play, I don't know if they win this football game. And it just, it showed that, this Georgia defense, they have an opportunity to take advantage of it. At least that was the sense I got. That looked like the sense that the Alabama team got. They trust in the plan, execute in it, and after a slow start, they could play in this football game. The second biggest moment right before halftime, there was, of course, the second quarter was huge for Alabama, outscoring 24 points, more than Georgia Bulldogs had given up all season long, not only in a quarter, but in an entire game. So that was just huge for the football game. But the key there at the tail end of it, in my opinion, a little bit of a double whammy here because unfortunately John Mechie got hurt on the play. But Bryce Young went for a scramble and he lost the football, and he's surrounded by Georgia Bulldogs. Somehow, some way, Bryce Young came up with that football. A turnover there right before half could have really halted Alabama's momentum. Unfortunately, they lost John Mechie for the game, and come to find out we've lost him for the season. But after this, Alabama did score twice more, but their offense was, without John Mechie, just wasn't the same. And why it was so big that Bryce Young jumped on that ball, because right before half, they score a touchdown, push that lead to, I believe, what would have been 24-17 at the break. Alabama had all the momentum in the world. And what do they do with it? They come right back out. First possession of the second half. 55-yard touchdown strike. Bryce Young to Jamison Williams. 31-17 lead. And I think even the most optimistic Bulldog fans knew at this point in time, this was just not going to be their day. And the defense made their adjustments after this. They didn't allow another touchdown the entire game. But again, those factors up until this point, the defense was getting taken advantage of. When the defense made the corrections, started coming at Bryce Young, it really started to work for him. But unfortunately, when the defense got right, the offense got sidetracked. Stetson Bennett and company couldn't get it done. After that Jamison Williams 55-yard touchdown, Stetson Bennett threw an interception in the red zone. Right after that, on the next possession, it was the last play of the third quarter, 4th and 10, down 14 points. Certainly understand Kirby Smart wanted to be aggressive there, but it was 4th and 10. That's not a situation that Stetson Bennett's going to get you out of more often than not. Alabama brought some pressure. Stetson Bennett just threw it basically to no one there. It was essentially a throwaway on 4th down. And then the final moment of the game, that was arguably the biggest of the entire game. Stetson Bennett throws the pick six interception. Could have been his second pick six from the same player, Jordan Battle, who nearly had one early in the game. But that was all she wrote, and it was 38-17 at that point. And Georgia, they didn't give up. We'll give them a little bit of credit here, but just didn't get it done. Didn't show up, and now Kirby's got himself a huge question to answer here at the quarterback position. It's not, you can't put it all on Stetson Bennett because Georgia couldn't run the ball that effectively in this game. That was a huge issue. The defense, again, massive second quarter breakdowns with the 24 points, and then right out of the third quarter, allowing another touchdown. These are the things that Georgia's got to get corrected if they're going to beat Alabama in a potential rematch in the national championship game. But, credit Nick Saban and Bryce Young and Will Anderson and the entire crew down there in Tuscaloosa, because the right buttons were hit all this week. And clearly, right after the game, Nick Saban, we'll get to some of his comments, but, he let it be known. The people picking against us, nobody's saying we had a chance. That really drove Alabama. So now the script is flipped, so to speak. Now they go into the college football playoff, same as normal. Alabama favored to win it all. Georgia, now everybody's going to be counting the Georgia Bulldogs out. When 48 hours ago, that would have been laughable. But now we'll find out, how does Georgia respond? That was something we hit on all last week. How do the Bulldogs respond to adversity? This is the first time that Georgia was going to get challenged. Potentially, they had not been challenged essentially since the opener against Clemson. How would they respond? They didn't get it done. Meanwhile, Alabama came limping into this football game, but facing so much adversity week in and week out, the final month of the season, finding ways to get it done. And that certainly seemed to suit them well heading into this SEC championship game. So, man, a lot of storylines from this football game, but I just think the biggest one after it, Nick Saban and the yummy rat poison. Man, they were eating up all the negative energy heading now their way. And now, of course, Alabama, number one in the college football playoff. Georgia jumps down to number 3. So let's kick it over to Nick Saban on the goal heading into this game. What changed for them in that second quarter? Bryce Young steps in here. He was at the podium with Saban, so he'll answer some questions. And this yummy rat poison.
After the loss to Texas A&M, you said your team was no longer viewed as elite. What did tonight do in terms of regaining respect?
Well, I think it gave us an opportunity to have a 2-game season. We have a 2-game season now, I hope. That's what we're going to work for. That's what we want to do. These players have worked hard all year long. I think they deserved a lot of respect for what they've been able to accomplish and what they've been able to do. But at the same time, how are you going to look forward? I'm sure Georgia will get in the playoffs again and and they deserve it. They're a very good team. So, it's how do we move forward? We've created an opportunity for ourselves where we have a chance to play in the college football playoff.
Bryce, what changed in that second quarter offensively where things were struggling a little bit in the first quarter, but really exploded in the second?
I think it was just us as a whole. Obviously we wanted them to get out to a better start than we did, but I think we all stepped up and we all answered the bell. We all understood, what was at stake. We all understood that we needed to step up. So, I'm blessed to have the teammates I do that. When our back's kind of against the wall, we understand to need to have a type situation. We kind of got our sparking and started moving. So, I'm happy we started to get going when we did.
I actually think that I agree 100% with what Bryce said, but I think sometimes when you start a game, the speed of the game gets you a little bit. The speed of their defense, maybe a couple times, their backs got outside of us because, it was probably happened a little faster than what we'd practiced and what we're used to. And I think once you sort of get used to the speed of the game, like their pass rush and all that, I think you start operating a little bit better, and our efficiency got much better in the offensive line as well as on defense.
For Nick, you had mentioned before the game you weren't sure how players would respond to being underdogs in this game. Just how do you think they responded, and how much was that used as motivation?
I think what these guys really wanted to sort of gain was more respect. Not just the fact that they were underdogs, because I think we had a tremendous amount of respect for Georgia, their team, and what they accomplished. But you guys gave us a lot of really positive rat poison. The rat poison that you usually give us is usually fatal. But the rat poison that you put out there this week was yummy.
Of all the Nick Saban quotes we've had over the years, I don't know if there's going to be one that tops this yummy rat poison. That has gone so viral. One thing I've yet to mention there with Alabama, and one thing everybody really was counting out, was the fact that Georgia was going to have this massive, massive advantage when it's their defensive line going up against Alabama's struggling offensive line. And those Crimson Tide offensive linemen really came through it in a big, big way. 0 sacks. Georgia had 0 sacks, only 4 tackles for loss in the football game. Bryce Young was giving them some love after the game, and Nick Saban also talked about Stetson Bennett and how they tried to make things difficult on him. And Jordan Battle, Alabama's outstanding defensive back who had the pick six, nearly had 2 of them, he's chimes in here as well as what they tried to do to make things difficult for Stetson.
Bryce, how much, usually the offensive line only gets attention from us when they give up 7 sacks or something, but how much did those guys impact this game against that defensive front?
Yeah, that was everything. It was obviously that's a great front, a great defense, and we knew that coming in. And I think they just kept hearing it, and like Coach said, they accepted the challenge and they really stepped up to the plate. In the biggest moment in the season. So, in all the success that we have offensively, it always starts up front. So I'm glad that you said that. You only hear about, people try to only say negative things about offensive lines in general and about our own line, but you don't understand every time that there's a positive play, and whether it's the run game, the pass game, whatever it is, nothing starts without our O-line. And they did an amazing job today. They stepped up to the plate, and I'm happy to have the guys that I do.
What did you guys do to really fluster Stetson Bennett tonight and obviously force him into a couple of huge mistakes?
Go ahead, Jordan, if you want to lead.
I think the main thing in this game was our disguises. We put in a lot of disguises this week, and that was a big thing. Have his eyes wandering around before the play. I feel like we did a good job in the back end and in the linebackers stemming and disguising. So I think that was a big part of the game.
Well, I think that you try to change the picture as much as you can and make the quarterback try to make decisions after he gets the ball in his hand. And, Stetson Bennett to me is very instinctive, very good player. And if he knows what the picture is, and a couple times tonight when he knew what the picture was, that's when he made plays, and several big plays. So I think us changing the picture on him a little bit helped. And We have to play the ball better in the deep part of the field. We've had a couple of those the last couple of weeks that are things that we need to do better. But all in all, I think that was probably the one thing that helped it the most. And pass rush always helps you if you get good pass rush. And we affected him in the pocket. He scrambled some, which is, you hate, but you're also affecting a guy when you do that because you're not throwing the ball in town.
All right, now flipping to the other side, I mean, so many questions to be answered in Athens. Is this defense as elite as we thought? Certainly didn't look like it on Saturday. Where's this offensive production going to come from? If they get into a shootout, they couldn't get it done here on Saturday. That goes without saying. Will JT Daniels be the quarterback in the playoff? That's yet to be determined. And I've had a lot of questions about this. Is JT Daniels even healthy? If you go back to that Missouri game, he didn't, I don't know if it was rust or what, but he just didn't look like the same player. I've been told that JT Daniels 100% cleared. So anyone out there throwing it out that, he's not good to go, he's 100% physically capable of playing. And, maybe this was just a very bad performance from Stetson Bennett. But here we've got 2 Georgia and Alabama games that Stetson Bennett has started at quarterback for the Bulldogs. And ironically, same score each time, 41-24. He just can't win a shootout. Doesn't matter if it's Mac Jones or Bryce Young, or there's a ceiling there that Stetson Bennett just doesn't seem to be capable of utilizing. And, I've also heard complaints that Georgia doesn't have enough weapons, but that doesn't seem to be the case when JT Daniels is in there because he's able to push that ball down the field. So, in my opinion, we've seen what we got in Stetson Bennett. Again, maybe the defense comes in lockdown mode. No Job Menchie. You don't have to worry about that. But they still got Jameson Williams, and Alabama's running backs are going to be getting healthier. Their offensive line's got confidence. There's, I really think Georgia's going to have to win 30-plus points to beat Alabama and to even beat Michigan. So tough questions to be answered here. Kirby talked about that after the game. Said he got a wake-up call, him and his team, which he kind of – it's funny, but he points to Alabama and how they got a wake-up call after Texas A&M, how that really helped them. And he was also asked about the quarterback pecking order, and he was pretty non-committal about his plans at this point.
After a 12-0 regular season, to have a performance like this, what does it do to the psyche heading into your next game and the damage it does to that?
Oh, no, it didn't do any damage. No, what it did is reinvigorated our energy. It recenters you. Right? I mean, I think one of their greatest thing is when they lost their game against Texas A&M, they were to garner some focus and some attention. I mean, to me, that's an opportunity for a wake-up call, if anything. Unfortunate that it comes in a setting like this. But, I mean, they're a really good football team, okay? And the narrative out there was, well, they just went at Auburn and they really struggled. And some of the sacks they gave up, their tackler didn't even get out of his stance. The crowd noise was a major impact there. Auburn played man most of the down, almost every single play, and they won a lot of their battles that we didn't win tonight. But we knew the narrative coming in, these guys can throw the ball, and they got a really good quarterback. And they gave him an opportunity to make plays, and he made a lot of really good plays along with their wideouts.
And Kirby, I understand Alabama scored 41 points tonight, but there's always debate about the quarterback situation. There's going to be debate about who should start in the playoffs. Can you just sort of address that and whether you think you have a decision to make about who starts in the playoffs?
We have a decision to make every week at every position, but I have the utmost confidence in Stetson Bennett and think he did some really nice things tonight, But we go and reevaluate everything all the time. But, he played well, and it's tough environment we put him in defensively. And we have to be able to run the ball and have a little bit of semblance of balance. And I felt like there was times tonight that we were getting into a scoring contest because our defense didn't get stops. And you don't want to have to do that. But I certainly have a lot of confidence in Stetson, and I have a lot of confidence in JT too.
All right, so again, it's tough to read what Kirby's going to do here, but I'm not saying anything Georgia fans don't know, but Kirby's been second-guessed time and time again how he's handled these quarterback situations. Any rival SEC fan is, just pointing and mocking and having fun, and everyone expects Kirby to screw this up, is my read on it, and because that just going off his history, I mean, that's kind of what it's been. So all of a sudden, Kirby Smart, so much pressure on him to get this thing to the finish line in the college football playoff. And it just made me wonder, I mean, if this Georgia team cannot beat Alabama, I know Alabama's good, but if you get two cracks at Alabama, Nick Saban, and you can't get it done with this team, I don't know. I have to be wondering if you're ever going to get it done, because Alabama's, I don't know, as they have looked flawed all season long. I mean, let's be real. I mean, they've had about 3 or 4 dominant performances this season, and the rest have been not the same old Alabama. Coach O said it after playing them. I mean, it's plain as day. Yet going up against Georgia, I mean, Alabama clearly looked like the most dominant team. They looked like the team better prepared. They had a better plan, and they executed that plan on Saturday. So all of a sudden, I think that we got some real pressure. I'm not saying we fire Kirby Smart, nothing crazy like that, but just imagine the offseason talking points and the storylines if they cannot finish this deal and get blown out once again by Alabama in a college football playoff in the coming weeks ahead. Would be a tough look for Kirby and them Bulldogs. And that, again, speaking of a bad look, Kirby was asked about Bryce Young and this offense and the issues defending Alabama and all the adjustments that need to be made, and his message to the team after the game.
You talked all week about how quick Bryce was at getting the football out. I mean, do you credit to you guys not getting enough pressure on him to that, or do you feel like their front actually really did a good job of blocking up you guys?
I'd be hard-pressed to say without watching it. You know, we got pressure at times, and he got the ball out. You know, he escaped pressure and got it out. And there were times we didn't. We rushed 4 a couple times and didn't get any pressure, and he held the ball. One of those touchdowns, I felt like he held the ball forever, you know. But you can't do the same thing every play. You got to pitch, and you got to mix it up. And look, guys, I've seen a lot of good ones in this league. He's special, and you know, you might play a quarterback as talented, but you might not play a group of skilled receivers with that. It's the combination of the wideout group they had, at least those 2 guys, and him making some plays. I mean, he made plays with his feet.
Kirby, if y'all end up playing Alabama again, what adjustments do you think you'll have to make to give yourselves the best chance to win?
I don't know that I can answer that right now. You know, I'd like to review the tape and see it. I mean, the first answer would be, don't leave people uncovered. You know what I mean? Like that's the first objective. Let's cover them and then try to win some one-on-ones and get balls down. Because look, now they're gonna throw incomplete balls. They're really good at doing that. So you've got to, at the end of the day, you have to put a body on a body and cover them. And you know, some of the plays we gave were gifts.
Kirby, after a loss like this, what's the first thing you tell your team?
I love them, and I appreciate them. And you know, the outside noise begins now. You know, we've heard it before, but these guys are so solid. We got such great leaders in there. I didn't have to say a lot in there because the leaders spoke up and talked about what they wanted and how they wanted the next couple weeks to go. And I think when you've got that, you've built the right kind of kids.
To me, he's saying all the right things here, but nobody cares if you're going to lose the damn most important game of the year. And that's what Georgia did. And now they've got a couple weeks to solve this thing before they face the Michigan Wolverines in the college football playoff. So, hey, we'll get to that in just a second. But before we get to all this bowl action here, I want to give you guys the latest on the coaching front here. Now, I know Billy Napier was officially announced on Sunday in Gainesville. And I'm not going to have anything on his presser here. I'm going to wait for the next episode, which will come out on Tuesday. Just so much going on with the bowl games and the SEC championship game. I thought it would be a little too much to shovel in here. But good news for the Gators. And this is something that we talked about when Billy Napier was officially made the hire. He's bringing his Louisiana defensive coordinator, Patrick Tooney, to Gainesville. And Louisiana had a top 10 scoring defense in the country last season. This was an assistant coach that I've been hearing a lot of great things about. And he was going to be a hot commodity here this offseason. So you're keeping that Louisiana tie together. Defensive coordinator, head coach now coming to the Florida Gators. We all know what an issue the defense has been in Gainesville in recent seasons under Todd Grantham. So Tooney hopefully can get that thing resolved. And the only other thing I got on Billy Napier real quick, his contract details came out. 7-year contract, $51.8 million. He's the 5th highest paid coach in the SEC as of today. He's going to make $7.1 million his first season, and that's a hell of a lot of money. I mean, this is Coach O money. That right after he won the national championship, got himself a big raise. But that's the price of doing business in the SEC. Billy Napier is now your 5th highest paid SEC coach. Now, there'll be some other guys here that get raises and probably knock that down a peg or two. But it's interesting that the Gators, and I don't want to say broke the bank here because we're seeing $100 million contracts across college football. But 7 years, $51.8 million for Billy Napier. He's got to be a happy man. And speaking of contracts, Lane Kiffin down at Ole Miss, he got himself a new contract, raise and extension. Now, we said this many times on the show before, but if you're not familiar with it, in the state of Mississippi, state employees can only be on 4-year contracts. So Ole Miss, Mississippi State, basically every offseason make a big deal about contract extensions, but really what they're doing is giving their coaches a 1-year extension. Now, Kiffin got a nice little raise here, but you just always want to keep your coach on a 4-year deal for recruiting purposes and making everybody aware that, the program's bought in. So that's what this really is. And I guess Kiffin, the carousel's kind of winding down here. Good time for Ole Miss to announce this deal. Kiffin says, there's a lot of paperwork that needs to go into it, but okay, buddy. But $7.5 million annually for Lane Kiffin on his new contract. Got to assume that is for 4. So we're talking around $30 million for his 4-year total. Got himself a nice little raise there. And, the latest, this just announced right as I'm sitting here recording this, but Oklahoma has finalized a deal with Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables. That was a name to watch there. If you go back and that's someone that we talked about for the Oklahoma job that was going to be a prime candidate. He is now officially the new Oklahoma coach, Brent Venables. And why I'm roping this into Ole Miss, because this morning, and there was about 5 or 6 different trustworthy reporters all saying the same thing. It was Chris Lowe, it was Bruce Feldman, I believe it was Ross Dellinger, among others, saying that Brent Venables was going to be the new coach, and it was looking like Jeff Lebby was going to be the new offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Now, that Jeff Lebby news is not finalized yet, but here we're going to play some of Kiffin's comments, and he's asked about staff turnover. He says he expects to lose some coaches. That's just business of college football. If you do well, you're going to lose assistant coaches. So it sounds like Jeff Lebby, who's an Oklahoma graduate, going to jump over to the Sooners, be their new offensive coordinator. But let's kick it over to Lane Kiffin talking about his new contract and on the fact that he expects some coach turnover this offseason in Oxford.
What did it mean to you to kind of get that contract extension done? And was there any doubt that you were going to stick around to stay as the Ole Miss head coach? And what does it mean to still be there and get it done and be there for years to come?
Well, I think sometimes people don't understand these things, sometimes have been in the works for a while. And this had been a long time, just happened to be finalized and announced yesterday. So, like I said, this was not just about me. This was a lot of getting things in place, which, the Keith and the Chancellor were all about. We just had to get it all, talked about, and it takes time. And a big part of that is making sure all the things in place in the future for the players from a facility standpoint, and then for the coaches to make sure that, we're able to keep these guys around and compete at the highest level, which is what we're trying to do, not just for 1 year like we did this year and have, 10 wins and all these accomplishments, but to do this for a long period of time takes all those things in place. You don't continue to win at that level, just because you hit 1 year and have a hot quarterback and different things. If you're going to do it for a long period of time, especially in the SEC, you got to have everything else in place.
Hey, Lane, you mentioned coaching staff. I was curious, how confident are you that you're going to be able to retain the staff that you've had? How much are you having to kind of prepare for potential departures for people getting other jobs?
Well, I've said it before, this is when you win, and especially to me, when you win with style that people watch, they say, okay, hey, I want to go buy that system, that style. And I'm not saying we're Alabama, but that's a lot of times why you see so many coaches leaving Alabama is people want to go get what they're doing. And so we lost coaches a year ago to when we first got to Alabama, and then last year to Texas, Oklahoma. So I don't take it personal. It's part of the business, when you're doing really well, because the players are playing really well, your assistant coaches, people want to come get them. So like I said about the head coach, it's the same thing. If you're losing, a lot of people want trying to come take your coaches. So it's a good problem to have. It's one we have to deal with, and we'll always find the best ones out there. And, there's a good chance we may lose one this year. So there's all kinds of factors that go into why coaches leave. And so I understand that.
I remember you saying that people need to see Matt Corral while they still can. And it's my understanding he's going to be good to go for this game. But what do you think, what are your feelings on being able to, if he does play, coach him in one last good game and in a bowl game, and just all that he's meant to the team this season and what your hopes are for him in this game?
Yeah, he's a special kid and just a special relationship. I just watched him, go over to the band and the fans after the Egg Bowl and, almost got emotional, and I had to remind myself I got one more with him. So that wasn't the last one, but I don't know exactly why the bond is what it is. People have said, the California thing, or, we both, USC didn't want either of us. They got rid of him and me both. But I just love seeing how far he's come. I love stories. Just had a recruit also ask, what do you like most about coaching? Is when you see a transformation in a college kid, whether that's him or Sam Williams. It's just really neat to see that and be a part of it. And, he's just such a great leader and such a great kid. Just really proud of him. And
now, final thing on Ole Miss, and again, I'm not saying this is going to hinder the Rebels here, but I don't think we've talked about this yet. But UCF quarterback Dylan Gabriel, I believe his name is, the guy that starred for Josh Heupel, he has entered the transfer portal after this season, and rumor has it he was headed to Ole Miss. Now, why? He wanted to play for Jeff Lebby, who he crossed paths with at Central Florida. So is Dylan Gabriel still holding Ole Miss? There's still a good chance to go reconnect with Lane Kiffin. Certainly that's got to be a selling point. Oklahoma's pretty situated at the quarterback position as long as Caleb Williams stays in Norman. If not, maybe that's a potential landing spot for Dylan Gabriel. But that's going to be a situation to monitor for Ole Miss, because it sounded like the former UCF quarterback was on his way to Ole Miss. And now with a potential change at offensive coordinator, we'll have to see if that's still in the works. And, hey, how about this news? Not officially SEC related, at least not at this point, but Carolina Panthers turned around and made some pretty surprising news on Sunday. They fired offensive coordinator Joe Brady. And, of course, every SEC and LSU fan knows that name. So, all of a sudden, one of the hottest coordinators in college football history. I know he's only there for 1 year, but it was pretty remarkable what they did in 2019 down at Baton Rouge. All of a sudden, Joe Brady's available. So we'll see where Joe Brady lands. Does he stay in the NFL? Does he come back to college football? I honestly have no idea, but I do know Brian Kelly's down there searching for an offensive coordinator. I know I'd sure as hell be picking up the phone and calling Joe Brady. Or maybe if I'm Shane Beamer, maybe if he wants to stay in Carolina. I know Marcus Satterfield still got a job, but hell, give me Joe Brady. That's what was the sell when we got Marcus Satterfield. It was going to be Joe Brady offense. Well, it sure as hell ain't Joe Brady's offense, but I expect Joe Brady, his phone to be ringing off the hook right now after being let go here on Sunday. And we'll keep you posted on where that thing is. And last but not least here, again, this is not SEC related, but it's so weird, and who knows how the dominoes will play out. Could affect the SEC in a roundabout way, potentially. But Oregon coach Mario Cristobal apparently has been offered the Miami job, according to Sports Illustrated's Ross Dellinger, and he's got till Monday to accept it. Now, keep in mind, Manny Diaz is still the head coach at Miami. So Miami's got a sitting head coach, and they've got an offer out to their next head coach if he wants it. And if he turns it down, they're going to keep Manny Diaz. That's... if you're wondering why Miami football's in the toilet, it's because of moves like this. I mean, what a poor move. And apparently Manny Diaz is out in the recruiting trail here on Sunday trying to, I cannot imagine the questions he's being asked on the recruiting trail about whether he's going to be there or not, because frankly, it sounds like it's up to Mario Cristobal whether Manny Diaz is in Miami or not next season. But hey, that'll be wild. And like I said, if the Oregon job comes open, who knows? Who knows the dominoes that could affect? Let's hope an SEC coach doesn't leave for that position, but stranger things have happened. So we'll keep you posted on all that. But hey, we got some bowl games to break down here. And of course, we got to start with the college football playoffs, where number 1 Alabama is going to be taking on number 4 Cincinnati in the Cotton Bowl. And this game's going to kick off December 31st, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central on ESPN. College football playoff semifinal matchup. And the other semifinal, the Orange Bowl in Miami, Georgia versus Michigan. Again, December 31st. That game's going to be 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ESPN. And we've got some point spreads only for those two. They don't have point spreads yet for the rest of the bowl games, but Alabama's favored by 13.5 over Cincinnati. The over-under is 59. And Georgia favored by over Michigan by 7. A touchdown here. Over-under 43.5. And that one a rock fight. But at least according to the spreads here, SEC favored to meet in the national championship. And I'm sure people from outside the SEC footprint that kind of roll their eyes at that, don't want to see it anymore. But man, there was a point Saturday night watching Georgia and Alabama just go at it. How could you want to see anything but that? And it's not that, the little guy deserves a chance. These other teams deserve a chance. But, I mean, it truly it was a heavyweight fight Saturday in Atlanta. I know it was a little one-sided there for a while after Alabama went on their roll. But, I mean, I think even the most, I think unbiased fans will tell you, on any given day, I think either one of those teams can win the football game. And I'm sure Alabama, once again, they're going to have a huge psychological advantage. They just whipped up on Georgia. I'm not sitting here that I'm saying I'm picking Georgia. Who knows if they even make it. If you were to put money on one team to make the college football playoff out of these two, I think you got to push all your money into Alabama. And it has to do with the fact they're playing Cincinnati. And it has to do with the fact with all the momentum they got. And it has to do with the fact where they don't have to worry about their psyche getting hit. I mean, who knows? Georgia this may have started an epic collapse that'll bleed over to the college football playoff. Michigan, hell, they've only lost one game this year. They beat the hell out of Ohio State. They just ran through Iowa. I think it was 42-3 in the Big Ten championship. So, hey, Georgia did this to themselves, put themselves in a disadvantaged position compared to Alabama. But that's the breaks of the game, and that's why Saturday's win in Atlanta was so huge for them Crimson Tide. Now, moving on to the only other New Year's 6 game we've got involving an SEC team, the Sugar Bowl down in New Orleans. Ole Miss versus Baylor. That's going to be January 1st at 8:45 Eastern, 7:45 Central on ESPN. And then here we got a bunch of bowl games here. The rest of the SEC, the Citrus Bowl down in Orlando. Kentucky versus Iowa, January 1st, 1 o'clock, noon Central on ABC. Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Mississippi State versus Texas Tech. The Mike Leach Bowl. Remember they fired old Leach for throwing that kid in a tool shed or something like that. December 28th, 6:45 Eastern, 5:45 Central on ESPN. Mississippi State's already played in Memphis this year and lost that game due in large part to those fucking refs blowing the game. But, hey, Mississippi State headed back to familiar grounds there. The Duke Mayo Bowl in Charlotte, South Carolina versus North Carolina. That's going to be December 30th, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central on ESPN. And Shane Beamer has already said he will take the Duke Mayo mayonnaise bath if they win that football game. So can't wait for that. The Music City Bowl in Nashville, Tennessee versus Purdue, December 30th. 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central on ESPN. The Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Texas A&M versus Wake Forest, December 31st, 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Central on ESPN. And speaking of the Aggies, wanted to make this note. Defensive lineman DeMarvin Leal, he's announced he's going pro, and he is not expected to play in the bowl game against Wake Forest, so wanted to make fans aware of that. The Outback Bowl in Tampa, Arkansas versus Penn State, January 1st, noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central on ESPN2. And great news for the Razorbacks here on Sunday. Won't have this guy available for the game, but you'll have him next season. More importantly, former 5-star Oklahoma transfer receiver Jadon Hazelwood has transferred to Sam Pittman's program, or at least he announced he's headed that way. I don't think it's finalized, but he has announced it. You know, there's no you got to say that in the transfer portal era. It ain't official till they sign up, but huge pickup here for the Razorbacks. Potentially, you know, he's not a Treylon Burks. There's so few of those guys out there, but he's got the talent of that. I mean, he was the nation's #1 overall receiver prospect in the 2019 recruiting cycle. Caught 39 passes for 399 yards and 6 touchdowns last season for Oklahoma. So this isn't a case of some 5-star bust that can't play football, and now you're getting him. This is a guy that clearly doesn't want to play for the Sooners anymore with Lincoln Riley no longer there. Now he's going to go play for Kendall Briles in a similar offense. So we'll have to see how that goes. We got the Texas Bowl here in Houston, LSU versus Kansas State, January 4th, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central on ESPN. The Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, Texas, Missouri versus Army on December 22nd, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central on ESPN. Ooh, Missouri against a service academy. That could be dangerous there if they don't come ready to defend that run. The Gasparilla Bowl, which is in Tampa. We got Florida versus Central Florida. December 23rd, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central on ABC. And last but not least, the Birmingham Bowl. Auburn versus Houston, which Houston's won 10 or 11 games this year. So this could be an interesting matchup here. December 28th, noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central on ESPN. Ooh, so we got 13 teams going bowling. Cannot wait for that. Gonna have all kinds of content, news, and notes on all those matchups in the days and weeks to come. But man, so much action here in the SEC. The season may be over, technically, the regular season, but it doesn't seem like the news is slowing down at all. So we're gonna keep coming at you guys with as many podcasts as there is news out there. And on the next episode, we'll break down more into this Billy Napier. All these coaches have held pressers since these bowl announcements that just took place. So we'll break down highlights from those. And we're just going to keep this thing rolling for the time being. But had to give you an episode now that, we just had the SEC championship. Now we got all these coaching moves and notes. But I think that's going to do it, man. I'm starting to wind down here, about to pass out. Keep talking to myself. But that's going to do it for this episode of the show. Appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you on the next one.